Please try and sit still. Low, try and sit still. There's something I think it's really important to talk about. Um, the year 2023 was one of the, years where I learned so many deep and important lessons about life, mostly about the transient nature of life and how quickly it just goes by and disappears. Last year I knew what, five people who passed on. Three of them were ex-students of mine who I hadn't seen in a long time, but when they studied with me, I was very close to them, their family, them. And, one of them was this movie actor, English movie actor, who used to come in my gallery all the time. And in a way, he supported me because he used to buy a lot of things for me to help me pay my bills. Very nice man who I used to like very much and enjoy talking to. An Englishman, he died in California. I read about it in the newspaper. And the last one was another actor named Alan Arkin, who I never got to know. But Alan wrote a very beautiful blurb to one of my books that was on the back cover of one of my books. And I was very grateful to him. And I mean, I never met the man, I never knew him. I knew his spiritual teacher, who was a friend of mine. And he asked Alan to do this. Alan was very gracious. He did it. But it taught me, to know five people who and somehow touched your life. To pass on in 1 year is a lot. It's a lot. But the important lesson to me was how transient life is and how, precious time is and how one must use their time to develop an inner life, to get stronger, to truly become a servant of higher energy in the universe. Because ultimately we have to go there. It's like Bach said, why is everybody grieving? I'm just going to where the music comes from. Last year, I knew a lot of people that went to where the music comes from. And I'm not sad about this because this is the fate of every human being, to go where the music comes from. Hopefully, we can go there with enough training to conduct the orchestra, so that we truly have learned what we have learned on the earth and we can become one with God and be free of all this karma and stuff that human beings have to go through in the world. It was an amazing education for me, 2023. Nothing that even upset me because it just is the evolution of all humanity. And what we do with our time, is the key to whether or not we get free in this lifetime. So I just had to pass this on to all of you because this was powerful education. 2023 was a very powerful year for me. It made me stop in my tracks and be so grateful for the life I've been given and what I do in my life, and just the ability to share all these things with every one of you. I mean, this is an amazing thing. And learning how to use one's time, one's energy, one's inner life, one's growth to serve a higher force in the universe. So when I look back at, which I really don't do, but when I, for a moment, think about it, I have nothing but gratitude for the incredible education I was given last year, simply in the transient nature of life and how precious time is and how so many people just simply waste it, chasing illusion, chasing things that have no depth, it's all on the surface of life. And they think these things are going to make them happy. Mostly they titillate them for a moment and they pass on and they pass on. They're transient, they go away. So what I'm really talking about is using the precious nature of time to build something in oneself that has permanency, that truly has connection with God, higher energy, and enables one to build a system inside that you really have developed your humanity to where there is a state of freedom. And what is that freedom? It's really in the heart chakra. Love, joy, kindness, compassion. Stand building a system that can live that way. Become a child of God living in the world. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? And I don't think my experiences are very different than the experiences that all of you at one point or another are going to go through. And then it becomes a question of, what do I learn from this? How does this teach me to make a deeper commitment to my spiritual practice? And people are always afraid that this takes away from the other part of it. Doesn't. It just adds to everything because we cross that border from our inner work to the objective world. We cross it consciously. And we know how to make choices. We know how to live in the world. We know how to treat other people. We've learned all this by just the realization that it's all transient. Comes, it goes. And the things that most people chase, are the most transient things of all on the material plane. They come and they go. They titillate you for a moment. You buy a new dress or a suit or a sweater, it titillates you for a moment, and then it just hangs in the closet, on to the next thing. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? I hope it's clear what I'm talking about. It's, I think, very important, and it was a great education for me. And I'm so grateful, you know, to have learned something from very difficult situations that have taught me how deeply my need is to continue growing and to continue doing deep spiritual practice. And it takes away from what? You go out, you go to the movies, you this, you that. I remember sitting with Rudy, and I'll never forget this. And he looks at me and he says, Stuart, tell me, how am I different than anybody else? And I'm sitting there and all I see is light coming out of him, auras. I see the person who has saved my life, who made it possible for me to have a spiritual life. And he said, ask me this question, how am I different than, I like to eat good food. I go to the movies. I go to the theater. I have relatives and friends, but I go to a party every so often. I said, how am I different? He asked me this question. I looked at him. I started to laugh. I said, Rudy, I don't think I said anything. I just let it pass. There was nothing to say. That is sheer gratitude for somebody who just simply gave me my life. It was a stranger, picked me up out of the street, basically, and saved my life. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask?
Hi, Stuart. I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you for everything you've just said. I just have a question about family. Um, it's the time of year when well, a lot of people are with their family and all that that can bring up, um, and how to have strength when you're meeting those patterns that you can't just say, okay, I'm not going to have this person in my life because there's someone there, your family. So,
You know, Alicia, I learned a long time ago you have to love them anyway. As difficult as they are, and all family is difficult, you know, all family. You have to love them, especially your mother and your father. They are the reason for the channel through which you came into the world, which your soul was born in this particular body, and they became the channel through which you can have a spiritual life. You come here for a reason, and you can't turn your back on your parents. Children and parents have to be unconditional love. I mean, cousins, uncles, aunts, okay, you like them, you can be with them, you tolerate them, and you don't try to be nasty to them. But mother and father and children, it's unconditional love. It's gratitude because they are the reason that we come into the world. So whatever they do, and look, I know what my family did. My family made me crazy, when I was younger. When I was 16, all I wanted to do was get away from home. And by the time I was 18, I got away from home. And when I was 20, I was traveling half around the world, hitchhiking. I mean, it was a different time then. Economics were different. The world was different. I mean, it was the 60s and it was, but I had to learn, you know, in my life that I cannot turn my back on my family. And I remember going home and I was doing all this meditation and yoga and spiritual practice and Buddhism and Hinduism and my family thought I was crazy. They thought I was crazy. And I said, Stuart, you cannot listen. You have to get strong enough in yourself to love them anyway. And I'll never forget when I went home for one dinner that my aunt threw at her apartment. And there were two things that happened there. One was my grandmother was there. She was 93 years old. And it was one of the most incredible things I ever saw. She was cooking for 25, 20 people, 93 years old. And I said to her, I said, Grandma, and she was the worst critic of me. I couldn't do anything right. And I finally said to her, Grandma, sit down and rest for a few. No, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I'll rest later. You know? She went around serving. I mean, she served the dinner for 20 people, cooked everything, served everything, cleaned the table. I mean, it was incredible. And she wouldn't let you get up. And it was always eat, 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 eat more, eat more. There's plenty of food. Anyway, it kind of changed something in me because she used to be my biggest critic, my grandmother. Really, she would make me crazy. Nothing I did was right. Nothing I did was right. And then I'm seeing this person. I said, my God, she's like a freaking saint. God bless her. How could I be angry at her? You know? And then that same dinner, my aunt came up to me, and I'll never forget this. And I had a cousin, first cousin, who was I didn't know this until I went to that dinner, that she was very sick in the hospital with a serious cancer. And the doctors had literally given her a couple of months maybe to live. And my aunt comes up to me with a tear in her eye and she said, You're into all this stuff that I don't understand, but all this mystical stuff. She said, Is there anything you can do for your cousin Sandy? And I mean, it brought a tear to my eye, how the whole energy changed. And it changed because I grew big enough to let it change, to accept these people and embrace these people. So I went to the hospital the next day to see my cousin Sandy. And I couldn't believe it. She looked like she had 2 weeks to live. And I said to her, "Do you want to live?" And she said to me, "Yes." So I started doing healing work with her that my teacher taught me. And literally 3 weeks later, she walked out of the hospital. The cancer went into complete remission. And of course, this completely blew my family away. And she's running around Sloan Kettering Hospital in Manhattan, telling everybody on the floor, "You've got to get my cousin to work on you." It's unbelievable what he does. I swear to God, this was a family that I was the black sheep, the person they even refused to talk about. And then, a month later, 2 months later, my mother calls me up. "Can I come to your classes?" So it's not the family, it's getting big enough inside to where you can support them, you can embrace them. You're not judging them. As crazy as they are, you're not judging them. You can love them unconditionally. Now, I'm telling you this from my own experience, what I went through, because when I was a kid, man, they wouldn't even talk about me. I was I was a terrible kid. I turned on my religion. I turned on everything. And I did. I needed to find my freedom. I needed to find my way to live in the world. At the same time, I grew big enough to embrace every one of them. So what your family is telling you, if you're having trouble with them, you got to get bigger. You have to grow and be grateful to them, even if they are a royal pain in the ass. Be grateful to them because they are telling you that you have to grow. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stuart. And can I just ask one more thing?
Yes.
Like, even when there's strong criticism coming from them towards you or towards me, and it's apparent, do you do you just kind of just let it go? Just
Look, when you're secure in what you're doing in your life, what does it matter what anybody says?
right.
It's you that have to get secure. And frankly, when you get that security in yourself, they'll stop saying it. They'll say, "What do you do? How did you get this way? How can I learn something that you've learned? So it's
Thank
not
you
them.
so much.
It's we have to grow in order to, and they're there to free us, to teach us that we have to grow. All their negative comments and their criticisms and if we take it personally, it means that there's something insecure inside us. If we don't take it personally and it just bounces up, it means we've grown past it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I know
Thank
it's
you
not
so
easy.
much.
You're welcome. It's not easy. I've been through it. I really have. And it's not easy. Sometimes you think there's nobody in the world that you can love. Everybody has a comment about what you do. Thinks you're crazy. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, if there are no more questions, there'll be meditation on Sunday. God bless you all. Again, Happy New Year. Walk away from the old year. And let's use our time, our energy, this precious life that we're all given to grow and turn it into an extraordinary life, something truly wonderful that not only nurtures us, but can nurture other people in our lives. And I mean, what more can we ask? So bless you all for being in my life. Thank you. And there'll be a meditation class again on Sunday. See you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Stuart.
Bye.
Bye.